If you love the experience of wine but are looking for an alcohol-free alternative to pair with your food, look no further than tea. It may sound like a strange concept, but in truth, tea has grown and evolved with Eastern cuisine for thousands of years and is often enjoyed together with Asian food. So if you want to understand more about similarities and differences between wine and tea and how to pair it with your food, have a look at this interview with two sommeliers, one wine and one tea, and we discuss how to experience tea with food. This is for the serious foodie. So today I'm with two different types of experts, two sommeliers in fact. One is a tea sommelier and one a wine sommelier. So we have Mariella Erkens. She is a tea sommelier and author of Tea, Wine's Sober Sibling. And we have Richard, wine sommelier and owner of Wine School of Cheshire. And we're going to be talking about the similarities and differences of tea and wine and how to pretty much sip both like a pro. So welcome, guys. So wine and tea have so many similarities and differences. And, with wine, we already know that it pairs beautifully with food. But a lot of people don't know that you can do exactly the same with tea. So I'd love for you to share, Mariella, first of all, what the similarities and differences of tea and wine is.
There are more similarities actually. The difference is, of course, alcohol. Tea has no alcohol. You can regret that or you can love that. Acidity. Tea is way more subtle. It may have acidic notes, but wine, of course, is much more acidic. So much for the differences. Oh, and of course, as well, you can get drunk from wine.
Of course, yes.
And sleepy as a consequence. Yes. Whereas with tea, you stay alert, you stay awake.
Yes, indeed. I mean, that's the beauty about tea, isn't it? A lot of people, don't realize that it has a very special substance called L-theanine that gives you this mental clarity that no other ingredient, except I believe quite a rare mushroom, can. So it's absolutely fabulous. And of course, if you pair it with food and you're dining out, you can drive home.
Exactly.
So yes.
And you can mix the two as well.
Yes,
Absolutely.
indeed.
So you can have one course with wine, the next one with tea, or the next one with tea and wine.
Indeed. That's a very,
It doesn't
very
bite
good
each
point.
other at all.
Not at all. And there, for instance, we have this wonderful tasting menu here at Arkle. Wouldn't it be fantastic to have, there's a beautiful wine flight, combine that and have a wine and tea flight so you can change between courses. Some will work with different ingredients perhaps better than the others. So combine the two. What a great concept to look at.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think, might, if you haven't had tea pairing experience, a tea pairing concept before, you might think it's rather strange. But in truth, very much like how wine has grown together with the cuisine in the West, tea has grown together with the cuisine in the East. And it's very, very natural to have tea when you have hot food, savory food, isn't it? And the pairings are beautiful. So without further ado now, we want to see with these two sommeliers here, how the experience is different or similar with wine and tea. So let's talk about the types of wine, for instance, that exist.
Types of wine, yes. And tea. I'm keen to, I want to ask in a minute, how many different types of tea are there? Because there's 10,000 grapes.
Yeah.
And that each grape has its own style, back to terroir, where it's produced, that changes. The winemaker can change the influence, whether they use oak, whether they don't, for instance. Their type of harvesting can influence. So I'm quite fascinated to learn the similarities. I think there'll be similarities with the tea harvesting, but I'll let you tell us about that in terms of the similarity sides.
Well, there are also 10,000 kinds of
There you go.
tea, honestly. Another similarity with wine, and you have even more parameters because, of course, oaks, non-oaks, all that, but with wine, but with tea you can play with the temperature, with the amount of tea, with the steeping time, and all that leads to different flavors. So you can multiply it by 4 or 5 times, which is stunning, honestly.
Interesting. Fermentation in tank is temperature controlled. Some will cold ferment, some will use temperature control, depending where the wine is made and flavours. So actually more similarities than we might think about. So I think the same with commercially, the consumer doesn't consider the winemaker when they're buying a bottle of wine, and I think in most cases, sadly, they don't consider who's produced the tea and put that love and passion into making it taste amazing, and that's consumerism. Unfortunately, we can't change that very much, but I can help tell people, and they'll learn to appreciate who's behind it, behind the label, so to speak.
Yeah,
Indeed.
absolutely.
Indeed. Now, when we serve wine, it's in a bottle, you decant it into a wine glass. Now with tea, it's slightly different. Do you want to tell us about how we can enjoy tea in a wine glass?
Yeah, sure. A lot of people wouldn't think that you can actually drink tea from a wine glass. It's, pretty new thing to do, but it actually works really well because, like wine, the aromas stay better inside because of the shape of the glass. The mouthfeel, the texture of the rim is very important. If you have a thick mug, it's not pleasant for your mouth. You can hold it like this so you don't burn your hands. You can swirl it around and you can smell. And that is exactly what you do with wine, but also with tea. If you want to appreciate a really good tea, it's all about smell, texture, taste, flavor, the entire experience. Like with wine. So another similarity. For example, shall I show?
Yeah.
Show you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here I have a cold brew tea. Oh boy.
I assist.
So if I may, just to add to this, to get from the leaf to cup, there is an extra step, and it is detailed in Mariella's book, but if you also want to know exactly how to do it, we have a video for that as well. But Mariella, would you like to explain more?
Yeah, okay. So here I have a cold brew tea. That means that we added cold water to tea leaves.
Oh, look at that beautiful color.
And the water that you add is also very important, but again,
We'll
we're
talk
going
about
to
that.
later. So here we have a tea. This occasion it's cold, but you can drink it hot even from wine glasses as well. And people say, no, you can't do that, they'll break. No, because you don't serve it piping hot. You serve it like 60, 70 degrees. It's no problem at all. So here we go. So you appreciate the color, like wine. You swirl it around a bit to release the aromas, and then you smell. What do you smell?
Yeah, it's
I think we should
interesting.
all-
The colour. Yes, interesting. These glasses are deceptively large. This particular glass is for Cabernet and Merlot, but it's actually just slightly larger than the contents of a full bottle of wine. So we only need
Wow.
you don't drink
That's
this much, of course.
that's interesting.
It's designed to just put this much in, but it's to aerate, which I think would be great to see. Let's give this a good swirl.
Tell you what, let's all
So
experience it together.
Is this is breakfast tea?
Yes,
It is.
signature
Fantastic.
breakfast.
Yeah.
So,
But
and
you're not.
let's-
But it's not your regular, ordinary supermarket
quintessential breakfast tea.
It's
Yeah.
quintessential. Yeah. So
Which
it's a
is-
high
I
quality,
adore, yes.
beautiful blend of Assam and thank you,
Yes, you're right.
and
Assam.
Kenya.
That's right. Yeah, so it has just a nice depth,
Yeah.
but should be quite smooth.
And it really does. This swirling just brings the nose. It changes its intensity. It actually reduces it slightly, which is it's quite good for for the tea factor. So
Oh, there's already immediate sweetness to it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And Kenyan tea is very delicate, very elegant, and Assam has much more
Malty.
power, malty, raisins, all that kind of stuff. So blended together, you have a beautiful balance. So it's not too overpowering and it's not too thin. So it's a
Indeed.
beautiful blend. So
So,
we'll try.
do we
So
taste it in the
smell
same
it.
way as wine? That's my
We do.
Fantastic.
So slurping, you explain. Why would
So-
you slurp?
For me is you would do this potentially not everyone has to if they're not comfortable with it, but when I swirl and slurp, I'm thinking about the food pairing. I'm looking at acidity or tannins, which I get some acidity in some teas, but tannins very much. And I think of the robustness, say for instance, a very big red that's been oak-aged, full of tannins, is something that's going to pair with a steak and peppercorn sauce, where you need that robustness. So it's looking for those things that I'm thinking about. The quality of the wine, or in this case tea, of course, is something you can assess at the same time. But so when in a restaurant you're perhaps doing it, you're looking for perhaps the quality, but for my job in food and wine matching is I'm looking for all those qualities in that one sip, and it's amazing what you can get from those few seconds, because our taste buds are clever pieces of kit, aren't they? So let's have a go. So we swirl. I try and draw some air in, some for aeration. This is so refreshing on my palate straight off, and it's the first time I've actually tasted this cold. Which is lovely, because this is one of my favourite everyday teas. So and completely different, but the tannins are very subtle.
Yes.
They're crossing the whole of my tongue, rather than some will grip the sides. So say a Cabernet Franc, for instance, is very tannic, will grip the sides of the tongue. You almost feel like you're starting to chew your way out of your own, facial expression. But this is subtle tannin, almost velvety.
Because of Kenya.
Velvety.
Almost velvety texture.
Yes.
So I don't know, if we choose a similar wine, I'd say perhaps it was Weigelt from Austria, that lovely velvety texture. Not similar in taste, but in terms of how it works.
Texture and mouthfeel.
Yeah.
So when do you think we can enjoy this? Because it's not just food pairing, isn't it? When we're pairing food, that we enjoy it in a glass of wine.
No, you could drink tea any time of the day. Of course, at breakfast you wouldn't use a wine glass, but if you are, for example, in the garden, relaxing, how nice is it to have your tea in a wine glass, not a chipped mug, or it adds so much to the experience. You feel like you're sipping wine, whereas you are actually
sipping
tea.
Yes.
And it goes nice with something small, a tidbit, but it's perfect on its own as well.
Indeed.
So any moment really, or late at night.
Yeah.
I
with
think on
friends
summer,
over, isn't it?
Yeah, when your friends
morning,
over.
Summer morning.
slightly chilled, sitting outside. How refreshing to have this instead of. I think it's in the British mindset to have a cup of tea. I don't know, in an emergency with some sugar or all sorts of calming. But as it's a great refresher. But this is on another level of freshness. It's really superb.
Indeed, it's everything has a time and place, and I think in a morning cuppa is a comforting brew. But how about something like this on a sunny afternoon, as you say, in the garden? Wouldn't it be lovely?
Or on a rainy afternoon,
Fair enough.
near the fire,
Yeah.
works
It
just
works
as nice.
every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's drink to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cheers.